Welcome to Red and Yellow, the podcast about all things to do with refereeing at grassroots level, looking at the laws of football, speaking to guests, and trying to help you become a better referee, with Adam Humphreys and me, Ed Connell.
Hello, loyal listeners. It's Adam here, and I just wanted to get in early on this episode of Red or Yellow to remind you to please send in your questions about refereeing or anything you feel like you might need help with in terms of your game. That's why we are here, to help you improve to be a better referee. We really enjoy getting questions from our listeners as voice notes via email or DM or on social media. Being able to help you is why we created this podcast, and to offer our insights and to be able to help you by drawing on our experience. Added to that, if you are a very fit listener, then please don't forget to follow us on all the social medias. It's at Red or Yellow Pod. As well as remember to like and subscribe in your podcast feed. Thank you so much for being here, and let's get on with the show. Well, hello, Edward.
Good evening, Adam.
How
this is
are
twice
you?
in 1 week.
I know, isn't it?
Twice in 7 days.
Even my fiance doesn't
Last
see me
time-
that much.
Because we recorded, a week ago today? We recorded on the Friday night, didn't we? Because it was before the FA Cup final.
Yeah, it was before my game at Wynnum. Yeah.
Yeah. How did your game go? Was it all right?
Yeah, no, it was. It was one of those. It was one of those classic games where context is very important, and just kind of knowing. No, like I haven't refereed Wynnum Wolves this season before, but knowing they were top of the league, they're pressing like first and second in the league, and then the other team, Southside Eagles, they're like a good mid-table, useful club, and I've had them a few times this season, and you just kind of knew that Southside Eagles would try and disrupt Wynnum from getting into their flow. They'd be a bit more physical and all the rest of it, and so like the first 10 minutes. I let a tackle or two kind of go in and just try to manage it a little bit. And then I became acutely aware that if I let this continue, I'm going to be in trouble for the game. So then, there was another tackle went in the middle of the field, bang, yellow card. I didn't even think about it. I was like, I just need to set a standard now. And then one went in for the other team, bang, yellow card, just to keep it nice and balanced. Both warranted a yellow card, but also I really needed them. And so I got them. And then after that, bang, not another issue in the whole game. And it's one of those games where once you set that standard and you let everyone know what is acceptable to you and what isn't acceptable to you, everyone just falls into place. And it was a really tough first 15 minutes. And then after that, it just got easier and easier and easier. And the players were complimentary about it as well. They were like, they complimented me, which was nice, basically. And so it was, so it actually went well.
When is the season running in Australia then? Because you just started your season, have you? Or
we're practically halfway through right now. So,
really?
but the A League, so the professional season, runs concurrently with the European season. So it has to run. It has to run in line with FIFA, I suppose, because of international games and things. So unfortunately, all of the professionals, they play over summer. But the community leagues and the semi-professional leagues that we're in, they run over the winter. Yeah. Although one thing I am struggling with at the moment is I've got plantar fasciitis. You ever had it?
No.
God, it is awful. Like truly, it's like I can't.
And is that just from running about on hard ground?
I think it could be.
Is that from running around on hard ground, or?
From what I can tell, a lot of it has to do with calf tightness. And so my calves are usually quite tight. I've had a few calf injuries. So I wonder if I've just pushed too much and gone too far. My boots weren't comfortable enough on hard ground, and it has caused issues. I've changed my boots now, but it's been painful. Yeah, it's been very painful. It's got better today.
Yeah.
It feels okay this morning. But yeah, I have to just keep stretching my feet out and ice it and freeze them before the game and take some painkillers. And I'm getting through the games, but it's painful elsewhere. So hopefully I can stretch it out and get through it. Yeah, so that's another little bridge that I'm having to cross, unfortunately, but that's okay.
And have you got a game today?
Yes, I do. I've got Southwest Queensland Thunder versus Who are they playing? Oh, top of the league, Surfers Paradise. So last week I had the team that were first or second, and now this week I've got the team that are first or second. So it's going to be, it'll be interesting. I mean, look, I like both clubs a lot. They're both really good clubs, so it should be a good game of football, and I'm looking forward to it. And I've also invited a few of the younger refs into the stadium to watch a game, have a chat with me after about the game, and come down into the dressing room and just kind of see how we handle the game and what we do and stuff. So that'd be nice.
Yeah, I'd see. Then your words disappeared. It lost you.
You lost me.
Just see. Yeah,
Oh,
it just kind of went. Yeah.
Oh, that's sad. So I said, yeah, I've got Southwest Queensland Thunder versus Surfers Paradise.
No, yeah, I got that bit. It's the bit you said they come down to the dressing room, and
so in my new role as a referee support officer, I thought it'd be nice to invite some referees down to see me and see how we handle a game and see how kind of, in a stadium, how we do it and what it's like and stuff. So I invited them to the stadium, and they're going to come and watch, and they'll come down to the dressing room, have a Q&A with us after. So I thought it'd be quite a nice way of trying to inspire some younger people. Yeah.
Just have a good game then, Adam. Bit awkward if there's too many talking points.
I missed 2 red cards, right? Yeah. So what about you? What have you got to? Have you refereed? You had any game?
No, it's season's ended, so no refereeing at the moment. I'm refereeing in a sort of 5-side football tournament in a couple of weeks' time. But no, that's it now until sort of September, late August, September time. So just holiday season now, which is nice. Just trying to assess as to...
You were on holiday during the season, so...
Yeah, no, I meant like holiday from,
from football. Right, okay. Cool.
And just debating as to being sort of filling out my referee registration forms. So reminder to everybody, if you haven't done it yet, to fill in your referee registration forms for next season. So I've been doing that, realised that my safeguarding qualification was out of date, so I had to do a fairly tedious online safeguarding course, which didn't work properly, so that took up twice as much time as it should have done. And I realised that from the days of my fostering, I've still got my enhanced DBS.
DBS,
CRB DBS. So I was inquiring of the London FA whether or not they could accept that, even though it's not expressly for the FA, so they can, as they put it, port it across, to at least give me the option if I wanted to do youth football. And by youth football, it wouldn't be going, but it certainly wouldn't be going back to the sort of the young football that I did before. Yeah. I was thinking more sort of,
under 18s, under 21s.
Yeah, exactly. So so that's been my week really. So news. I was going to talk first of all because the last episode, Lacey had written in and asked us about which law would change, and you said shin pads, and I said,
now I'm on the inside track of Football Queensland. I'm going to make it one of my little badges of honour when I get shin pads changed. I'm telling you.
Well, my immediate response last week was to say it probably would be connected to the handball law, and then rather coincidentally, that view was cemented the following day, because the next day was the FA Cup final. And so just to recap on the handball law, I'm sure everybody knows already, but insofar as handball, if you are in the penalty area and your arms are in an unnatural position and it hits your arm, it is a penalty. Now, this is the problem I've got, because the old law was whether it was deliberate handball or not, right? And that was an assessment which the referee made. Now, I think this law is totally absurd, and I'm rather pleased that after the FA Cup final, lots and lots of pundits and ex-referees have come out and said this is a mess that they need to sort it out, and let's hope they sort it out for next season. I don't know if you saw the FA Cup final, but there was a penalty given to Man United where 2 players go up to head the ball. Jack Grealish is sort of defending. He jumps up to head the ball, and the Man United player gets the ball first, and it heads it, and it hits Jack Grealish on the arm. Now, Jack Grealish's arm was out to his side, right? There's no doubt about that at all. And there's no doubt that under the new laws, that is an unnatural position because arms naturally are by your side. But it was an absurdity because it was quite clear that Jack Grealish was just trying genuinely to play the ball. it came off the player. He had no chance at all to move his arms away. As for whether or not even is an unnatural position, I mean, how do you assess what's a natural and unnatural position when someone is jumping at a bit of an angle to try and get the ball? I mean, what is a natural position for someone who jumps? I don't think you naturally have your arms by your side when you jump up to try and head the ball in that situation. And it's quite frankly is an absurdity that in a big cup final, a decision like that, a non-deliberate handball, could have influenced the outcome of the game. And I'm certain that's not what the lawmakers want. I appreciate they wanted to bring about a degree of certainty. And this does bring about a bit of certainty because everybody knows now when you see, VAR shows you someone's arm is out, whether they knew it was coming or not, whether they had the opportunity to take their arm away, we all know it's a penalty now. But I just don't think generally that's how we want, a handball to be, adjudicated. But I think it's wrong. I think it needs to go back to being deliberate or accidental. We're all perfectly capable of making that assessment, and that would make things a lot more sensible in my view.
I'm looking at it now. This is the first I've heard of it, and it looks like they're kind of both running into the box, and the ball's come over the top. The defenders headed it, and Jack Grealish's hand is up in the air.
Yeah.
Now that is not unnatural. That is not a natural position for someone's hand to be in as he is running, as he is defending. Like the way you was describing it made me think. The way you described it made me think like they were both jumping up at like a corner to defend a corner, and his arms are up as he's jumping, and that's why his arms are out there. And I'd agree with you in that sense. I think having your arms out wide in that situation for balance in air to get lift is a natural position. It just doesn't look natural when you look at it as an image. I mean, granted, I'm only looking at the image.
No, of course it doesn't. If you freeze frame it,
yeah,
it is a handball. His arms in an unnatural position. But the point is that it's quite clear that he knew nothing about it, didn't intend to do it. It didn't prevent a goal scoring opportunity. It's just wrong. There shouldn't be infringements when people are just trying to play the game. And you do have to watch it at the speed at which it was being played.
Yeah.
Because that helps you both appreciate the fact that it wasn't just a ball that was just going up in the air. It was coming in at a trajectory, at pace, at an angle. He's running back to try and sort of jump towards it. And it's a fraction of a second between when it comes off the Man United player and hits his arm.
I mean, I agree. Distance. I don't like the fact that it is kind of in there and it's kind of not, and you can still sell a decision based on how close he was to the ball as to how much he could get his arm out of the way. But you
can't. But that there's no discretion about that though. I mean, if you take the view that I don't know how you define natural position. That's the problem. I mean, it just says natural position.
I think
natural position depends on what action they're trying to do at the time.
Yeah, of course it does. And I think it actually gives referees a much greater scope of selling it to not be a handball. You see, like maybe I think the issue is we're walking down a path of where when the ball hits the hand, we're looking for it to be a handball. But if you look for all the reasons why it could not be a handball, you're probably going to be a bit safer because given handballs are, I don't know, players want them all the time, and they can be very disruptive to the game because the ball hits the hand a lot, right? Generally, not a lot, but it does happen. In tackles, when the ball is real close, when defenders are defending, and they can't get that, they can't move out of the way. So I think looking for it to be, whenever I see the ball hit the hand, I look for many reasons. Like I'm always quite slow on giving a handball because I'm trying to see if I can justify it not being a handball first. And generally I look to, the main things I look to is, has the ball hit his hand and then dropped at his feet, and therefore he's gained a ridiculous advantage by it hitting his hand, whether the hand is in a natural or unnatural position anyway. And the other thing I always look for is kind of like how close they are, how fast the ball's coming in. Like it's all about that context. And I think in this instance, you're saying the context of it is puts Jack Grealish in why it shouldn't be a handball, and that's maybe fair and right. But
yeah.
I think, rather than us, I mean, players and coaches will always look for reasons for it to be a handball. Has the ball hit the hand, it's handball. And they'll always say that. So your job is to actually build a much greater case as to why it isn't. And then I think it's a much easier sell. You can go, no, he's too close. You can go, no, he had no idea. You can just say whatever you want in that situation to just let play continue.
And then, I don't know whether you saw the Europa Conference League final, West Ham.
I'm in Australia, mate. You don't get to see anything really. But go on.
West Ham versus Fiorentina. But there was another handball penalty.
Right.
And this one I think was clearer. I mean, the ball it's sort of in the air, and the West Ham player has an advantage over the defender who's behind him. And the defender is moving his arms, and in moving his arm forward, he effectively punches the ball beyond the immediate space in front of the West Ham player. And that one I felt was much easier to understand. I think it was an unnatural position, and there's an obvious disadvantage to the attacking player. But yeah, for me, the handball law needs to go back to what it was. I'd retain certain elements. I agree with the law as it stands, whereby if it hits any player's hand, and then leads to a goal, then it's a handball. I agree with that. I think that's everyone understands that, brings about certainty. But yes, it's this unnatural position. I think we should be going back to deliberate and accidental. But that was one piece of news.
I'd be very interested to find out what the listeners think about it, how they manage it, how they what they think of the law, whether they find there's a discrepancy between what they do on the field and what they see on the telly, stuff like that. Because it is one of those laws. It's one of those laws, a bit like offside handball. Like everyone seems to have a different opinion of it, and everyone wants it to be what it's not. So yeah, it would be interesting to find out.
I think it makes it more difficult now under the new law to not give pens, because everybody's just got used to this idea of unless the hand is by your side, if it hits the player under the laws, it's not unnatural position and it's a pen. And I think it makes it much more difficult now as a referee to not give one, because I don't really think there's much discretion in that. If you take the view of the arms in an unnatural position, whether they were, a foot away from them and had no chance at all, doesn't really matter. But anyway, there we go. But that just answers Lacey's question, but it's also sort of news. Another interesting bit of news this week. You didn't see the Conference League final between West Ham and Fiorentina, but I did send a screenshot to you this week. So again, looking at the sort of referee forums. So just to set the position, in the first half,
you should be a commentator.
West Ham in the first half, West Ham player, he got booked for simulation. Okay?
He dove, yeah,
and it was the referee was spot on. He got that completely right. And so he's on a yellow card. Then second half, there's a penalty for West Ham, and he takes the penalty. And his goal celebration, he runs over to the West Ham fans, jumps up on the hoardings, and is effectively kind of being embraced by the fans. Now, I think there's another quite important piece of background information which I think is relevant here. If you hadn't seen the game, you wouldn't have seen this, but the West Ham fans were constantly throwing items on the pitch every time there was a corner for Fiorentina. Yeah, so there's unruly fan behaviour.
A player got hit in the head, didn't he? He was bleeding from being hit by a vape.
Yeah, the captain got Fiorentina captain got hit by a vape that caused him immediately to bleed and had to have his head taped. So you've got a crowd which is misbehaving, and it was quite clear.
West Ham fans misbehaving? You've got to be kidding me.
I'm not saying anything.
You've got to be kidding me. West Ham fans misbehaving.
There'll be a lot of West Ham fans listening. I'm not going to incur the wrath of them.
Not in my lifetime. I will happily incur the wrath of them. I've spent the last 15 years of my life incurring their wrath. I'll carry on.
So the player has gone over to the hoardings. Now, what is crystal clear from the law is a must give a yellow card situation, right?
Yep.
Must give. Yep. There's no discretion in that at all. And I think that the aggravating element of that offence was the nature of the crowd, danger of things boiling over, etc., etc. The referee did not give a yellow card.
Yeah.
And this has caused a real
stir,
polar opposites argument about application of the law and managing the game and the event. And this is a really difficult one. I find this really, really difficult.
It's really hard.
It is really hard. I mean, I know that we are slightly opposing views on this because there is no discretion for the referee in that situation. And we expect the referee to uphold unambiguous laws
See, I'm
and
smiling.
give the yellow cards.
I'm smiling because
Yeah, I know you're smiling.
Right.
There is.
It's really difficult. Okay, it's really difficult.
The player was Ben Rama, by the way. I couldn't remember, but yeah, it's Ben Rama.
I think this is very difficult because everyone who's in those forums and everyone who is passing comment on it, in that the referee was wrong or not wise to give the yellow card, the second yellow, have never refereed a European Cup final, okay? Because there's a very select panel of referees who have refereed a European Cup final. And I would hasten a bet, if you was to speak to any of those referees or any of the referees who were at the World Cup, they would all, to a man, probably say to send a player off in a cup final for a technical offense like that is not showing empathy for football, is not showing what the game expects. Okay. And this is really hard. Look, if the reason the law is there, the reason like that yellow card law is there when someone jumps into a crowd is because it can wind people up. It can incite. It's more if he was to go and do it towards the Fiorentina fans, right? Like it's to stop players inciting violence from fans. It's to stop players winding fans up. It's to stop players going into opposing technical areas and celebrating in front of them, like trying to cause aggravation for aggravation's sake. Celebrating with your own, celebrating with the people who have supported you all season and stuff. I think you could argue there is a little more understanding, and he's not inciting anyone in that sense, not directly, indirectly, potentially. Is that worthy of ending a European Cup final on the spot, like sending a player off for it? Like, I get it if it was a dangerous tackle, if he punched someone, if he spat at someone, if he headbutted someone, if he lunged at someone. Like in footballing terms, like in the game of football, you have no choice in that sense, right? But for technical things like this, and it also depends on how strong the referee feels, how comfortable the referee felt in his ability to manage the event at large. And I reckon by that point he was probably feeling a bit better, because it was probably a little while after the guy got hit with the vapes, I think, and stuff. So I think potentially, I personally totally get why he didn't send him off. You're right, letter of the law, but it's what the game expects. You always, in the back of your head, have to have what the game expects. It's similar to what we were talking about with handball. You have to give what the game expects. And the reason you dislike the handball rule at the moment is because you feel like a lot of the handballs are going against your expectation of football, and therefore you think there's something wrong with the law.
I just think that when you've got to look at VAR and pour over, images time and time again.
That's fine. I get that.
It's just not right.
No, I totally understand that. But I think what the game expects is important here. And I think in a cup final, you do end up with having to manage that event. If he just sent him off, and the other argument is, if he just sent him off for that, would that have caused more problems in the stadium? Have you considered that?
But I understand that no one wants to ruin a big event on a technical infringement. I understand all of that, and I understand that no one wants to see that happening.
The players should know better.
But they should know better. But it's more than that. I think it creates a real problem for grassroots referees, because it means there's one set of laws for the grassroots referee, another set of laws for the professional game, and it's already difficult enough to referee at grassroots level, anyway. And there is no ambiguity about that section of the law. The section of the law says must. There's no discretion at all.
So
when do you disapply mandatory laws for the benefit of the game? I mean, I think it makes it very difficult for grassroots referees.
I agree, but I've got news for you. Football is not even throughout the pyramids, right? FIFA have had this thing for a long time, which is why they didn't want to bring in VAR, because they wanted football to be exactly the same in the Premier League as it was in under 11s. Like, football had to be the same. But then, and that is just a nonsense. The whole thing is a nonsense because it's just not. One, my field gets flooded. I don't have floodlights like in the community, right? The field gets flooded. I don't have technical teams. I don't have physiotherapists. I don't have fourth officials. The game isn't, I don't even have blinking assistants in the park. So the game isn't level anyway. I agree, it does make life harder, but unfortunately, people just need to get wiser. The player on the field, or how many times have you said to players on the pitch, guys, this ain't the Premier League. Come on, you can't be doing that. Do you know what I mean? Or you've said, well, what do you expect? This is the level we're playing at. And you probably, as the referee, a good way of managing that is setting the standard with the players at the level they're at. You should, and if they go, oh, what are you doing? Like, they did this yesterday, at Norwich City or whatever. That was a strange reference, wasn't it? Why do I think of Norwich City? You just go, yeah, but we're not at Norwich City. We're not at Carrow Road, are we? We're here at Hackney Marshes. So the game's a bit different, I'm afraid, gentlemen. Let's respect that and just understand that it can't be a replicated sport throughout the pyramid. And unfortunately, it's just one of those things. Like, I get it, I understand it, but when you've done, I mean, I haven't done games at that level, but I notice a big difference as I've gone up the pyramid of football, just how different the game is. I've even noticed a massive difference in different countries, right? I don't know where the referee was from, but, from England to Australia, even when we did that European tournament in Rome, like, managing the different cultures of the teams, the Italians, the French,
not easy.
It's not easy at all. And so you have to take all of that into context too.
Yeah, that's very, very true. And the last two pieces, the last really piece of, I know there's two pieces of news I was going to deal with. The first, I was just going to say, we spoke last week about the Roma Sevilla game, the abuse that Mourinho got.
The abuse Mourinho gave.
Oh, Mourinho gave, sorry. I was going to find out with 2 points.
I compared it to Donald Trump. And interestingly, I was speaking to a colleague of mine called Troy about that the other day. And he completely agreed with my metaphor. Thank you. He was like, you're completely right. I was like, thanks. Like you, Troy.
So the two interesting points that followed from that, three things actually. First of all, there are rumours going around that UEFA were going to open an investigation into his reffing of the game. That was being spread, it seems, in Italy, and UEFA said no, not at all. We weren't unhappy with his performance. Second thing was, UEFA have invited him, I think, and his family to be guests at the Champions League final after their sort of unpleasant experience when they left. Was it Bulgaria they were in last week? I can't remember.
Pest, Hungary.
But yeah. And then finally, Mark Halsey, I don't know how to pronounce his name, the former, Premiership ref.
Yeah.
He's been very vocal this week, saying that he described the behaviour of both sets of teams and
the fans.
The players and the sort of the management officials as being absolutely shameful. And he's calling for a minimum 6-game ban for Mourinho. He's calling for point penalties for both teams for their next participation in European competition. So it's just interesting to see that, that I wasn't alone in my outrage at what happened.
No, rightly so. And I think points deductions is the way forward to manage us in a much better way now.
And then the last piece of news, I thought we should probably mention the fact that there were two referees that retired this week in football. The first of which was the referee who refereed the Europa Conference final between West Ham and Fiorentina. He is Carlos del Caro Grande.
Do you want to give that another go?
Well, that's pretty good, to be honest.
What is it? Carlos
Carlos
Carlo?
Del Quero Grande.
There we go.
I'm
That's
assuming
better.
he's
You did
Spanish.
the typical English thing. If in doubt, just put a weird accent on it. It sounds okay.
I know how to pronounce Spanish words. I've got Latin GCSE and a French degree. I can work it out. But
Carlos,
he was
Carlos Del Quero Grande. That'll do.
Yeah.
Okay. I hope he gets in touch.
I was rather surprised actually. He looked very young.
Yeah.
And then I read he was retiring, and I thought, blimey, and he's actually 47. He doesn't look 47, but he was retiring. He's been doing international football since 2013. He was at the Euros in 2020, and he was a La Liga ref from 2011 to 2023. And then the other referee who has retired this week, and this was significant because I don't know what you saw on social media, but the referee is another referee from the Spanish League. This time it's Mateo Lahoz, who you would recognise his face because he has done quite a lot of international stuff. But interestingly, he was retiring after, I think, 288 games in La Liga. He's 46. But what was significant about it was at the end of the game, he got a guard of honour from the players.
I saw that. Yeah.
And he sort of walked off crying. And it was obviously a really, really emotional thing. But I mean, it's not often you see referees getting appreciated or applauded. And I just thought that was a really, really nice. And the fans as well were all sort of up, it was a teams I think were Mallorca. It was Mallorca playing, I think.
Interestingly, he's only 46. So in comparison to the other guy, I mean, he looks a lot older than 46.
He looks a lot older than he absolutely does. Yeah, he definitely looks a lot older.
Poor Mateo Loth. He's from Algimia.
Cool. But so there we go. That's the end of the news.
He's a PE teacher.
Is he?
Yeah, there you go. Lots of good referees on.
Quick post-bag question or two before we try to finish off that never-ending Law 12?
Why not? So I was at a social last night, a social event with Football Queensland. We went to Putt Putt, which to you and I is basically crazy golf.
Mini golf, yeah.
Yes, and I was chatting to an Italian he's in charge of coaching development. So he's one of the coaches in Queensland. And he looked at me and asked me, why are you a referee? And and I thought it was a really good question. And he said he was quite astounded by my answer. I was like, why? Because he kind of I thought he meant why would anyone do that job? But that's not what he meant. He wanted to know, like, why do I see myself so much as a referee? Like, what's my position in football as a referee? And he was talking about sort of management and all the different pillars of coaching and how they balance all of that. And he said, I imagine we're refereeing management is one of the biggest aspects of the game. And I was like, yeah, you're not wrong. So I thought I'd ask you that, Edward. Why are you a referee?
Well, my answer, I suspect, is very similar to a lot of our listeners' answers. I kind of got involved in refereeing because of a need for it. I think I've mentioned on the podcast before that I was involved in LGBTQ plus football, and we were going through a very difficult phase at the time of the FA refusing to allow affiliated refs to referee unaffiliated football. And I get the arguments about insurance, etc., but it was a real problem for us because on the one hand, the FA were telling us they're being pro-diversity, and at the same time putting a massive hurdle in the way, massive obstacle to allow us to actually have competitive football. So it was a business need situation whereby I thought, well, if I, get my referee qualification and every club in our league has a referee, then we'll always have referees to be able to do the game, so we won't have a problem. And interestingly, it was that didn't solve all the problems because a lot of the referees who actually qualified, were given fairly stern warnings about the consequences of being found to be refereeing unaffiliated football, to be wearing the FA badge whilst they're doing unaffiliated football. I absolutely didn't give a monkeys about that because I was absolutely hoping that the FA were going to make an example of me, and I was going to, go for them in a big way, but it just never happened. And the other thing, and I also wanted to remain involved in football because I'd stopped playing through injury, and I thought I want to remain involved in the game. I've been involved in coaching, playing, and managing for sort of over 10 years at that point, and it was a good way for me to keep involved.
And you met
me.
And
I met you. And the final thing I would say that I always thought that, my skill set was very well suited towards being an arbiter. I mean, I genuinely remember in the school playground when I was at my middle school. So I remember that even though I was
Sorry,
quite a
your
good
middle
footballer,
school. What kind of posh ass school did you go to? Most people had primary school, junior school, and senior school.
No, we had
middle
primary,
school,
middle, and then secondary school.
Oh golly, where was this? In the home counties? Was it?
Sorry, of course.
Of course.
But I remember as a kid making.
Did you go to Winchester Boys School or something? Did you?
No,
I bet you did, didn't you?
Anyway, that posh. But I actually made my own yellow and red cards, and I would referee. I'd referee in the school playground.
I bet you was a popular kid at school.
But I was, I've always felt I'm quite good at,
I understand
being
that.
an arbiter, and that's led to my professional career as well. So the skill set's there. Exactly. So yes, those are my three reasons. So what's your reasons?
Oh, it's nowhere near as cut and dry as that. The first thing I said to him was, well, when people say I did a good job, it's good for my ego, so I quite like that. But no, in truth, I've always viewed my role, like with children and that, I've always viewed my role as like, or even with adults, as like, I like to be the coach of the laws of the game for them. So I try and coach them through the laws of the game so that they understand the game so much better, and therefore it makes life easier for the referees. I do that. But really and truly, it's like, I was never a good player. Like, I just wasn't. I don't really have sporting genes. My mum and dad would only let me play cup football on a Saturday morning. I was never allowed to play.
Makes sense now, because I used to beat you in tennis quite regularly. So
thanks.
Kind of all works.
Yeah. All right, fine. And so should we go for a run, Ed? Shall we?
Well, how many marathons have you done, Adam?
Oh my!
Just out of interest,
yeah, okay.
how many marathons have you done, and how many have you done under 4 hours?
I have a congenital heart defect, thank you.
And you've done one marathon, haven't you?
I have.
What was your time?
I completed the marathon. Wow! Look at this sparkiness.
3 hours 50, New York.
I think. Yeah, but New York's flat. I think
it's absolutely not.
I think this is demonstrative of my point earlier about how bullied you were at school. The fact that you're peacocking on a podcast. So, and then I also was like, well, I just wasn't a good player, and I never got. I was always picked last and stuff like that. So, I just realized, people said to me, you'd be quite a good referee because you're loud, you're confident, you don't mind standing up to people and talking to people, you have presence and stuff like that. So I was like, okay, great. And so I started doing it, and actually I like the way it makes me feel as like an athlete. I like the fact that it makes me feel strong, it makes me feel fast, it makes me feel like I'm looking after my body in a way. I'm so much higher up in football than I would ever have been as a player. Like, I wouldn't have even got close to refereeing in stadiums I've refed in, going around the world, and that's been really awesome, and that makes me feel very good about myself. And it's always good to do things that make you feel good about yourself, right? And I just I like the effort and energy it takes to try and make football more accessible and a much better experience for everybody involved. And as a referee, you are directly influencing that experience of people. Don't get me wrong, it doesn't always go that way. But yeah, I really view my view as a referee as a guardian of the laws of the game, as a guardian of the game. Like, I'm trying to make the game better from how I found it to how I leave it. Do you know what I mean? And in my own little way, I hope I have that effect on everyone I come across on the football fields. Obviously, I don't, not everybody. I can't please everyone, but I'd say majoritarily, that's all I'm trying to do.
I would.
Majoritarily is a word.
No, absolutely not.
It absolutely is.
I would be very keen, though, to have listeners get in touch with us to let us know what was their motivation for becoming a referee.
Oh, that'd be amazing, wouldn't it, if we had a whole list of those?
I mean, I think there'd be a preponderance of people who would say that it was about need. Their kid didn't have a referee, or there was a shortage, or their son was playing for the local team and the local club needed referee. I suspect most people get involved for that reason. But I'd really love to hear what other people's motivations were. I mean, because I suspect there's a whole load of other
interesting reasons. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
that's why people...
Plus, like, I think the sense of resilience it builds, the fact you can earn some cash.
Yeah,
you know,
fitness.
I think it's absolutely. I mean, that was one reason I got involved. I was like, I can get paid and keep fit. Why not? Like, as an actor, that's a great solution. If I was your parents, I would write a stern letter to Winchester Boys School and say they want their money back, because majoritarily is an adverb,
Are you
and it
looking
means
up in
bare,
the
mostly, for the most part. So
Aussie
you and your
dictionary?
no, that's on Wiktionary or whatever it's called. All right. So you know, all your middle school nonsense, they clearly didn't teach you the fundamentals of English.
Although the second thing that comes up when you search it on
Shut up, don't look at that,
Google is majoritarily real word.
And the answer is
it means
we know I'm right.
Mostly, or for the most part.
Right. Is that not what I just said?
So there we go.
Right. Should we get on? Have we got any other questions?
No. I think because I think
we better do the law, right?
Yeah, let's finish off the law 12, and then I've got a few fun facts, and I think we can then start afresh our law 13 next week. And let's
I have to say, I'm bitterly disappointed that more people didn't get in touch. That I got one of the answers bang on last week. I thought people would be very proud of that.
And I should just say, actually, I managed to get round. I've been away with work this week, and I wanted to get my steps in, so I was going out for walks. I was
Good for you.
Warwick University campus, and I was listening to your solo podcast you did in my absence.
Right.
I thought it was very, very good.
Oh, thank you very much for answering the questions. I appreciate that.
And you dealt with a whole load of our postbag questions to help clear some of our backlog. And I'm trying to remember, there's one specific question that you answered I thought really, really well. I thought it was really, really good episode. So well done.
Oh.
So we were I went back and had a check on where we got up to with last week's podcast. And we had got to the dealing with the team officials. So we dealt with the direct free kicks, indirect free kicks, and all the sort of things you get the cautions for, the cards for. And we came on to team officials. And I think this is all pretty straightforward. But anyway, it's probably worth remembering.
Can I just bring up a point of order? You said last week that there is a thing in the laws that if you have mistaken identity, you just give the card to the coach. That is true, but only in relation to the whole bench. That's not true of players. So if you've got the wrong, you can't say you don't know what player committed an offence. You can't then go and sanction the coach because of it. You still have to sanction a player or not.
Right. I knew I'd read it somewhere in Law 12 when I was doing my homework. Homework, Adam, is where you read the laws in advance of the recording.
I didn't go to Eton, so
you didn't get the memo.
No,
but
no. In state comprehensives, we don't get homework, my friend.
We don't pay enough. Of survival.
We don't pay enough for that. My poor taxes didn't go that far.
The law surrounding team officials, I think, just reflects common sense, but it's worth going through it. So where an offence is committed, and the offender cannot be identified. So this is where I was getting it from. The senior team coach present in the technical error will receive the sanction. So you just clarified that. So
which is really useful. Really useful.
Especially
because you can't get rid of the physio, right? So in order to make the physio shut up, you punish the coach.
But that's just something that completely slipped my attention. I didn't know that at all. So it's quite useful to be reminded of it. But then it goes on to say, warning, the following offences should usually result in a warning, and repeated or blatant offences should result in a caution or sending off. And I would imagine that if you said to somebody what the sorts of things that a team official could get cautioned for, and they didn't have the laws in front of them, I suspect they'd probably be able to run off most of the things on this list. So
let's be fair. This list, only repeated offences of these results in a caution or send off. So this is structured thus: like they do one thing, you then warn them. You say that's not
Yep.
acceptable. Can you please sort
Repetition.
it out? Then when they escalate
cards.
it, then it's a caution. Then escalate some more. It's a red. So it's a nice like 3-step process to go through.
Yeah.
And that's designed to help you manage them.
And as I say, I think these are all most people guess these. So entering the field of play, in a sort of non-confrontational manner, and in fact,
which they do all the time.
And even entering the field of play in a respectful manner is something that they should be warned about. Fans cooperate with a match official. So that's an instruction or request from an assistant referee or from the fourth official, and failure to cooperate is a warning. Minor low-level disagreement by word or action with a decision. And I think that's really quite useful to remind yourself of as well. I mean, instinctively, I think that if a referee is sort of criticizing you vocally, that you would expect a referee to go over and have a word with the team official. But it's worth remembering that repetition that can result in cautions. And then finally, leaving the confines of the technical area where you don't commit any other offences is something they should be warned about. And then it naturally flows from that cautions are going to be issued for repetition of those things we've just mentioned. And there's a few other things in there as well. So caution offences include, but not limited to, clearly and persistently not respecting the confines of the technical area. Well, we've dealt with that already. Yeah. Delaying the restart of play by their team. Again, I think instinct tells you that would be something you could caution for. Deliberately entering the technical area of the opposing team. Dissent by words or actions, so kicking and throwing things like water bottles and objects, or actions showing a clear lack of respect for the match officials, such as sarcastic clapping. Entering the VAR review area. Excessive persistent gesturing for a red or yellow card. Excessively showing the TV signal for VAR review. Acting in a provocative or inflammatory manner. Persistent unacceptable behaviour, including repeated warning offences, and showing a lack of respect for the game. So, I mean, that's a long-winded way of saying that it's really the gut feeling as to what you would think would be worthy of a caution, I think, anyway. There's nothing in there that particularly took me by surprise. I mean...
No. Benches are always difficult to manage. And we say... or I say in my games, like generally, if I'm coming over, to my ARs, if I need to come over and deal with them, then it is not likely to end well for whoever I'm talking to, because for them to disrupt the game that much at that point, if they're not listening to an AR and they haven't heeded the warning, so almost like the warning section of this, I give responsibility to my ARs. Then if they've not been able to get on top of it with just the warning section and they feel like they need more help, then if I'm coming over to deal with it, it must be a cautionable offence by that point, or a sending off offence. But when you don't have the joy of ARs, generally, you can go over, you can chat to them, and also coaches love it. Do it on the run if you can, like a goal kick, run round and just say to them, guys, can you please not, or whatever, and then run away. Don't stand there and open yourself up to it escalating very quickly. There's a good clip of mine on YouTube where I was dealing with a coach asking him to get back into the technical area, and it escalated so quickly to a send off immediately, just because he was indignant about me asking him to get back in the technical area, and his indignance he just kept going through. He ticked all of these off so quickly, and I was like, you've given me no choice now. It's got this far at this point, you have to go. And so it can, with coaches, escalate very fast, a lot faster than it can with players. Players generally, you can work with them a lot easier when it comes to discussion, because they understand they have a responsibility to the other 11 men, whereas coaches kind of don't, or women, sorry, but coaches kind of don't in some way. It just always seems to spiral out of control too quickly, in my opinion, with them.
And
so you do have to keep your distance and try and coach them on the run, and don't hang around asking for trouble.
And I was going to sort of say, and sort of touch upon it there, about it's slightly different considerations when you are without assistance. And I think that you just need to have communication with them, and I think that's a good tip about doing it sort of like, on the run, whilst just as a getting back in position for a goal kick to be taken or something like that. It doesn't make a big deal of it, but you've made your point. You've given your warning.
And if it's and they appreciate that sometimes as well. They respect the fact that you've gone out of your way to chat to them quickly, and you're just saying, mate, can you just let it go now, thanks, and then run off. And they're like, oh, okay, like they appreciate the fact you've not made a big deal of it as well. And so that can sometimes really help you.
Yeah. So those are the yellow card offences, and then it sets out what the sending off offences are. And again, I think it's sort of like aggravated versions of what we've just talked about, or so delaying the restart of play by holding onto the ball, kicking the ball away, obstructing the movement of a player, deliberately leaving the technical area to show dissent or represent the match official, acting in a provocative or inflammatory manner, entering the opponent's technical area in an aggressive or confrontational manner, deliberately throwing up, kicking an object onto the field of play, entering the field of play to confront a match official. That includes at half-time and full-time, interestingly, because you see that happen a lot.
Well,
at the professional level.
If a coach is coming over to talk to you and you're going to card him for the simple fact that he's coming over to talk to you, I think that's going to cause you more problems than it's going to solve. So I think, I think confronting is the word here. Like, how would you define confronting? It doesn't mean coming up for a discussion about something. It doesn't mean needing a chat about something. This means like walking straight towards you, hell for leather, wanting a row with you, wanting to cause problems with you. I think that one, this comes down to like that gray area of refereeing, yeah. Whereas if you look at it in a black and white situation, most games and most coaches, I'm ending up with a coach on a red card because of this law. If I looked at refereeing black and white, yeah. Whereas this is that gray zone where actually what's better for the game is maybe you just have a discussion, maybe you just appease his issues, maybe you just placate him, go, yeah, all right, mate, see you later, brilliant, have a good halftime, thanks, and kind of deal with it that way. So I would urge caution with that one, to be honest.
Yeah. And then final ones, physical or aggressive behaviour, which includes spitting and biting towards an opposing player, substitute team official, match official, spectator, any other person, receiving a second caution, obviously, and in line with the usual laws, using offensive, insulting, or abusive language and or actions, well, it's the same as for a player, and using unauthorised electronic or communication equipment and or behaving in an inappropriate manner as a result of using electronic or communication equipment.
That's interesting. We get that in our games because coaches go in at half time. They watch the live stream on YouTube if there's been like a penalty denied. This was one of the issues with the coach I had to send off. I'm pretty sure like he was aggravated that I didn't give him a penalty for a collision in the box that was off the ball. And I'm pretty sure at half time they've gone in, they've reviewed it, they've watched it, and then they've come out wound up for the second half. And he's not been willing to let it go because he was, and it says in our competition rules they're not allowed to do that, but it's their dressing room. Who's stopping them? Do you know what I mean? And so,
I'm not sure that this law actually covers that scenario. I don't think this law prohibits them from reviewing footage.
It's a new thing, right? Like I suppose it's not at the professional level, but at our level, it's relatively new. Like these VO cameras, they're great, but they can cause problems when they think they can dig a referee out at half time for a decision he's made, and because at full time when they have to review it at full time, there's an element of you don't have to see them again until 5 weeks later and they've all calmed down. But when it's happened at half time and it's impacting the way they're managing themselves in the second half, it is a big problem.
But I think this is aimed at, I'm trying to think of what it exactly is aimed at. I don't think it's aimed at people reviewing footage because I don't think that the law prohibits that. But I'm trying to think what this might be. It's aimed at
giving them communications kits. Yeah. It's aimed at like calling the goalkeeper on the mobile phone or something. It's aimed at silly stuff like that, right? So yes. Or it might be aimed at filming referees for footage in a threatening manner. Like, I'm going to film you because I'm going to write a report about you, or whatever. It could be aimed at that.
Yeah, maybe. And then the final one is violent conduct. And then the last category on this particular aspect of the law is offences when object, brackets, or the ball is thrown. And in all cases, the referee takes the appropriate disciplinary action. Reckless is you caution the offender for unsupported behaviour, and using excessive force, you obviously send off the offender for violent conduct. I'm trying to think
it could also be. Sorry, I'm just going back to electronic or communication equipment. It could be using a megaphone.
Yeah, that would.
Not that I've ever had it, but I wouldn't.
No, but that would fall within that definition.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely right.
Right, deep breath, because we're still not finished. Law number 12, which is interminable.
Restarts, which are so important.
We've still got one final section.
We're nearly there, and then we're on free kicks.
12, and then we're.
Do you want me to read this one?
Yeah, go for it.
If the ball is out of play, play is restarted according to the previous decision. If the ball is in play and a player commits a physical offence inside the field of play against an opponent, an indirect or direct free kick or penalty kick is the restart of play. A teammate, substituted or sent off player, team official or a match official, a direct free kick or penalty kick. Did that make sense? I'm not sure.
Not sure.
How many wines have you had this night tonight?
No, I've had one whilst been sitting here.
Right. So basically, this is saying that if the ball is out of play, play is restarted according to the previous decision. So if say the ball's gone out for a throw in, and then someone turns around and punches someone, you don't restart play with a free kick. You restart play with a throw in.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Does that make sense? Yeah. And then if the ball is in play and a player turns around and punches someone, then you restart that with either an indirect or direct free kick according to what the offence was.
I mean, I'll be honest with you, that's a bloody difficult way of describing what was just quite simply put
instinctive,
there by you. Instinctive reaction. I mean,
yeah. And then again, it's if it happens with a teammate, a substituted or sent off player, team official or a match official, that's a direct free kick or penalty kick, depending on where that player has impacted play while the ball is in play.
Yeah.
Cool. All verbal offences are penalised with an indirect free kick.
Well, that just follows on from what we said last week, which is
about my ball,
non-contact.
Yeah.
Infringements being dealt with by indirect free kick.
And that also covers you taking the ball all the way back from the attacking third to the defensive third because the left back wouldn't let something go. It's an indirect free kick. It's to basically stop a goal being scored directly from these kinds of issues.
Yep.
If the referee stops play for an offence committed by a player inside or outside the field of play against an outside agent, play is restarted with a dropped ball, unless a free kick is awarded for leaving the field of play without the referee's permission. Against an outside agent. So if a dog runs on and a player kicks a dog, then you start play with a drop ball.
Yeah.
But you still sanction the player for kicking the dog because that is dissent by word or action. I mean, depending on your view of dogs, right?
Also depending on whether it was deliberate or not. I mean,
well, I don't know.
Dog runs across.
That's fine.
Got his foot back.
But I don't think we need to deliberate the issues of a dog being on the field. There was a game last year that I was reminded of at training on Thursday of like, there was a whole bunch of ducks in the middle of the field. This is a semi-final of like a cup or a semi-final of the league or whatever. And I had like 5 geese in the middle of the field. And I don't know why, but something in my head thought it would look good to try and usher these geese off of the field. And as I was doing it, my assistant was like, Adam, you look like such an idiot. I was like, yeah, I probably do actually. But we couldn't play until this damn goose had gone away. If when the ball is in play, a player commits an offence against a match official.
Oh, you missed a bit about the indirect free kick bit.
Did I not said that?
Yeah. No, the indirect free kick is taken from the point on the boundary line where the player left the field of play. That
right.
Didn't quite. That's for the infringement about people leaving where they didn't have your permission.
Okay, cool.
Which makes sense. Yeah. Then the last bits.
If when the ball is in play, a player commits an offence against the match official, an opposing player, substituted, or sent off player or team official or outside of the field of play, or a substituted, or sent off player or team official commits an offence against or interferes with an opposing player or match official outside the field of play, play is restarted with a free kick on the boundary line nearest to where the offence strict interference occurred. Yeah. For direct free kick offences, a penalty kick is awarded if this is within the offender's penalty area. What? It's basically in all situations, players restarted with a free kick on the boundary line. If when the ball is in play, a player commits an offence against an official, an opposing player, substituted, or sent off player or team. So anything that isn't another player.
Yeah. No, I mean, I didn't. That was a very wordy way of saying
everyone who's not a player.
Yeah, ends up being on the touchline. I mean, doesn't.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just, yeah. That's straightforward, isn't it? If an offence is committed outside the field of play by a player against a player, substituted player, or team official, basically anyone other than the technical areas, play is restarted with an indirect free kick on the boundary line closest to where the offence occurred. So if it happens off the field of play, you then start with a indirect free kick on the field of play.
Again, I don't think that's
too difficult.
No.
But I mean, these are such rare situations. No one's going to care how you restart play. Do you know what I mean?
No, I agree with that as well.
If a player makes contact with the ball with an object, so like if a goalkeeper takes off his glove and throws it at the ball, play is restarted with a direct free kick or penalty kick. So that's quite a significant offence. Doesn't happen often, but say a goalkeeper was wearing a baseball cap and he wanted to come out, he realised the ball had gone past him, he took off his baseball cap and threw it at the ball to try and knock the ball off of its path, then that would be restarted with a penalty kick.
Yeah, and again, I think that even without having read that law,
you'd have thought
that sort of it's an obvious infringement in the penalty area.
I've never seen it. I've never
seen it either.
But I can understand why it has to be in there.
Yeah, no, I get it, but I don't think I've not come across that before.
And if a player who is on or off, also, I think you'd probably do the goalkeeper for denying an obvious goal scoring opportunity as well. If a player who is on or off the field of play throws or kicks an object other than the match ball at an opposing player, so you are allowed to kick the ball at each other, at an opposing substituted or sent off player, team official or match official or the match ball, play is restarted with a direct free kick from the position where the object struck or would have struck the person or the ball. That's interesting-ish.
Mm.
So it's not where the player kicked it, it's where the object ends up striking.
Yeah, and it's also kind of weird that they draw a distinction between throwing an object at opposing players and throwing objects at substitutes or sent-off players or team officials or match officials.
It's all just a bit odd, isn't it? I'd argue 98% of referees don't really overthink this side of it. If a substituted or sent off player temporarily off the field of play or team official throws or kicks an object onto the field of play and it interferes with play, an opponent or match official, play is restarted with a direct free kick or penalty kick where the object interfered with play or struck. So basically, if someone throws something onto play towards a player, you give them a direct free kick at the point at which it struck as well.
And the great thing about in the very unlikely situation that one of these absurd scenarios arose, and you went with your gut feeling, I'm absolutely certain that no one else on the pitch or off the pitch will say, no, Law 12, Part 4, it should have been this and that, and it should have been here or there. They just won't know.
I'd also argue that in those situations, the match official is included in them. But I'd argue if anyone is doing any of those things towards you as a match official, don't restart play with a free kick. Abandon the freaking game.
Yeah, no, I agree. So, Adam, that
we
brings
got through
us
it.
End. Finally, it took us 3 episodes.
Law 12.
Fine at the end of Law 12. And next week, just to titillate the listeners, it's we're not moving very far away.
Is it
from
the free kick?
It's free kick still.
Yeah.
The good news is that I think a lot of this will be common knowledge to
Yeah,
most
pretty
referees and
straightforward.
fans. And thankfully, it's not a particularly long law, so we should be able to complete that next week's episode and the episode after that, just so people have got an idea of what's coming up. Law 14 is the penalty kick. Law 15 is the throw-in. Law 16, the goal kick. Law 17 is the corner kick. So we're sort of reaching the tail end of things.
Tail end. We've got through
And
the what's the word? The
meat and drink.
Meat and drink. The thick of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've got through. That's very, very true. So we will know what that means, Adam, don't you? All that's left is for us to deal with my fun facts.
Cue jingle. Again, you don't have to wait. Oh, good. It's now time for Eds Fun Facts.
So I thought that given that the Premiership season has just finished, I thought it'd be interesting to look at some of the stats for the referees in the Premier League last season.
Awesome.
And I was rather surprised to learn that there is quite a large volume of
There would be
statistics available in relation to the Premier League referees. So, there were, according to the stats that I've seen, there were a total of 23 referees who refereed in the Premiership last season. And those range from, well, let me see if we can make this slightly interesting, give you a few guesses.
Got it, here we go.
The referees who refereed the least number, or made the least number of appearances in the Premier League last year, how many do you think it was, Adam?
3 appearances.
No, it was only 1 appearance.
Oh, I was going to maybe suggest that, but
he
must have had a really bad game.
Well, it must have been. But looking at their stats,
every decision went so far.
Because interestingly, the stats that are available, which we're going to just deal with very briefly, are they keep a record of fouls per game in matches refereed.
Interesting.
Number of foul stroke tackles, penalty kicks, yellow cards, and red cards. So there's quite good material. And looking at the stats, those officials that only 1 appearance, Robert Madley and Josh Smith, their figures aren't broadly out from.
Well, Robert Madley used to be a Premier League ref, didn't he? Quite regularly.
Yeah, so and then he went abroad after his slight issue that he had, didn't he? Where he was he the referee that made a comment about an inappropriate comment about I think about disability.
I don't know.
Caused him. I think it might be him. But anyway, he moved abroad. He's come back to referee. I think his brother referees as well, doesn't he? I think there's 2 of them. But anyway, so going back to the Premier League, and how many appearances did the people with most appearances do last season, Adam?
Oh, well, they play 38 games, don't they, each team? Oh, probably 100 games. Is that possible? No, because there's only so many weeks. Let's go. I don't know. 28.
That comprehensive education really is coming back to bite you.
Touché. 28 games.
Pretty close. 30 games. And I think you probably, well, I don't know how up to speed you are with the Premiership referees, but there were 3 referees who made 30 appearances in the Prem last season. And I think they would be what most people would say were the most obvious candidates. So
Michael Oliver.
He is one of the 3, yeah.
Anthony Taylor.
He's one of the 3.
Well, I'd be struggling for the next one. Don't know. No, not sure. I don't think I could name another Premier League.
So it was Paul Tierney.
Paul Tierney. Yeah, okay.
Other one. And I was right about Madley having a brother, because his there are 2 Madleys in the top 23. Andy Madley is made 24 appearances last season. But yeah, there's a whole load of names that most people would be familiar with.
Chris Kavanagh,
Stuart Atwell.
Oh yeah, Stuart.
Chris Kavanagh, Darren England, on Andre Mara.
Oh, of course. Is he still going? Oh, he's retired, isn't he now?
Yeah, he's retired, but he
had a
did 13
career.
games this season. So, just some interesting stats. Let's just focus on those top three: Michael Oliver, Paul Tierney, and Anthony Taylor, just to see how broadly consistent they are, which is what you'd expect of people of that caliber. Number of fouls per game?
Per game. Oh.
For Michael Oliver.
Early 30s, maybe? No, not that many. No.
Lower than that.
Yeah, maybe late teens, 17, 18.
So for Michael Oliver, it was 21.33 fouls per game.
Yeah, okay.
And the others are very broadly similar. Paul Tierney, 20.97, so just less than that, and slightly below him. Anthony Taylor, 19.87.
That's really interesting, because that could tell you a lot about how many times you feel like you're blowing your whistle in a game. If you feel like you're giving more than 20-ish fouls a game, then you probably are doing too much. There's generally not that many fouls in a game in general. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah, I agree with that.
So it's a good way of you knowing that stat. That's the Premier League guys. Like, you should be probably close to that as well, because football at that, generally, because levels are similar. Like you got Premier League versus Premier League, or you got Div 1 men's versus Div 1 men's in your local community. The level of the players will be similar. I'd be surprised if you feel like you're doing more than 20 fouls a game, then you probably need to look at what you're assessing yourself on what is a foul and what isn't.
What's quite interesting, I was sort of saying about how statistically I couldn't see any obvious factors as to why those two at the bottom had the least appearances, but actually
giving more fouls.
Yeah, it's interesting that
are they in their 30s?
No, not quite. But so the bottom three at number 21, there's a chap called Tim Robinson who did 2 appearances. Then it's Robert Madley did one.
He got promoted. Tim Robinson,
did he?
He's been promoted to the elite panel. Yeah.
So and Josh Smith is in last place with 1 appearance. But anyway, Tim Robinson gave 28.5 fouls per game, which is quite significantly higher than those we talked about. And then Robert Madley was 27.
Yeah,
and then Josh Smith at 25. High. So they were, I think, probably if not the highest, probably the 3 highest. And then what's also quite interesting is that Tim Robinson only did 2 appearances, gave out 9 yellow cards. So that's average of 4.5 per game. And Robert Madley gave 6 in the 1 game that he refereed. So and then Josh Smith did 3 in the game he did, which is interesting because when you go back then to look at
but in fairness to them, it's not overly fair because they're averages, right? So absolutely. The more games you do, you're going to pull it. They would have pulled that average down. They could have just got a bad game.
Yeah, they could have had a bad game, but
the players were bad, not them having a bad game.
No,
if you've only done 3 or 4 games, averages are going to be far more extreme.
Although the fact that they have all those stats and they only did a very small number of games suggests, I didn't know, I can't tell you which games were refereed, and I can't tell you whether they had a good or bad game, but it kind of suggests that perhaps they didn't perform particularly well. But it's still harsher, I thought, to to 1 appearance and
to be judged on 1 appearance,
penalised for that.
It's a Premier League. Like you're gonna, it's gonna take a while for you to settle into doing that. Like I know when I get. Like now I'm on FQPL1 pretty regularly and I feel very comfortable there. But the first time I was given an FQPL1 game, I was like, big deep breaths. You have a new event to deal with. You have a different standard to raise yourself to. It's not the easiest.
Yeah, no. Just very quickly, just one of the other stats is number of fouls per tackle. It's a bit harder than I thought.
Number of fouls per tackle. What does that mean?
Yeah, fouls per tackle. So how many what proportion of tackles were fouls is my interpretation of that. Okay. Yeah. And it's low. I mean, Michael Oliver is the highest of the top ones. It's 0.63. It's interesting.
So then what are they giving fouls for? What? Oh, how many tackles in a game resulted in fouls? Right. That makes sense. So what does that tell you? Does that tell you that Michael Oliver is generally letting play flow as much as possible?
I think so.
Yeah.
And I think
and the guys at the bottom of the list are their stats a lot higher.
Let's have a quick look. I think in terms of fouls per game. Yeah, but so Tim Robinson is at 21st is 0.97. Then Robert Madd is 0.79, and then Josh Smith is 0.89.
So they've got more fouls per game. They see more fouls in a tackle, right? So what that leads to is them disrupting the flow of the game too much. And that's probably inferring into that, which is one reason, and that frustrates players, that frustrates fans, that frustrates managers, coaches, when you're not letting you're not letting things ride enough. You're not letting players just get on with it, especially at that level. Players just love to play. They don't care too much about the fouls and stuff. Other than the big obvious ones, you don't need to penalize those nitty gritty ones. And so, because it does just disrupt the flow. And so that's really interesting.
And then the last stat is just in relation to yellow and red cards, which I thought were quite interesting. So just dealing in with the top three referees, Michael Oliver, Paul Tierney, and Anthony Taylor. How many yellow cards? Let's do with Michael Oliver first. How many yellow cards do you think he gave out in the 30 games that he did last season?
30 games. 10 a game, that'd be 300, less than that. 170?
No, it's really quite much lower than that. It's 87.
Wow.
So his average is 2.9 yellows per game. Quite low, isn't it?
That's very low. That's very good.
Interestingly, Paul Tierney and Anthony Taylor, who are, the two others that did the most appearances that season, significantly more. Both of them gave 114 yellows per season. So their ratio is 3.8 yellows per game. And I'm just having a very quick look. I'm trying to see.
What was Michael's ratio?
Michael's 2.9 per game.
That's
so
interesting.
87. So he's quite significantly lower.
Because I believe in trying to keep the book as balanced as possible. Okay, no, it can't always be done, but basically, trying to walk away so you've got 2 yellows on each team most of the time each game is generally, a good way of if you're coming out with things close like that, maybe 2-1 or 3-2. Like generally, you're probably seeing the game in the right manner. Whereas if you're constantly coming out with one team with 7 and one team with 0, then you've got issues there. So the fact that both falling on even numbers would suggest, like the other two, Anthony Taylor and Paul Tierney, would suggest they're probably balancing their books quite well. And it matters less when you're giving out less yellow. So Michael Oliver, the fact he's only given 3 a game, he's probably coming out with two for one team, 1 for another. Easy peasy, job done. Like when it's that fewer number, not many people worry too much.
And then final fun fact is just in relation to red cards. So Michael Oliver, 30 appearances last season.
30 appearances.
No, yeah.
I was going to say 30 red cards. That seems high.
How many red cards, Adam?
6.
Only 1 red card.
Yeah.
That's interesting, isn't it? And Paul Tierney?
Again, 5.
Yeah, he was 2. And then interestingly, Anthony Taylor, of the 3 who did the most appearances last year, gave out the highest. He gave 4 red cards, which is a ratio of 0.13 reds per game. And
again,
just having
that just goes to show, though, doesn't it? Like, I'd say probably the majority of red cards in community football are nearly all for dissent. Not all, but a lot of them are for like swearing, are for issues, for physical contact issues, as opposed to necessarily footballing issues, because you don't end up giving that many red cards for footballing issues. So if you are given a lot of red cards and you're having a lot of problems to deal with and stuff, then you have to ask yourself, how am I managing those situations? How am I preparing players to not go in with 2 feet? How am I communicating to players on the move, on the run? How am I discussing it with them during the game to try and stop them from doing something really stupid, right? Now, it can't always be done, I appreciate, but it just goes to show at the elite level, in footballing terms, you never give out that many red cards for footballing reasons. And so if you are walking away with a red card every week, then you've got to sit down and look at yourself and be like, what can I do to help reduce that number? How can I somehow get that number down? Like, I'm always surprised when I don't give out many red cards. Like, I think this season I've gave 1 to a coach, and we're halfway through the season. And I sent off 1 player in under 23's game. That's it. In senior football, I don't think I've given a single red card. And I think a lot of that has to do with man management and the communication in and around the tackle, in and around contact, reminding players to not be stupid. And I think, you know, the role of the referee is to almost keep players on the field, not get rid of players.
Well, it's interesting because Anthony Taylor, who I've told you already gave out 4 red cards this season, he gave out the most red cards of all Premier refs last season. So it's 4 was the
interesting.
And the final fun
But,
fact,
and he did do 30. What did he do? 30
yeah,
games.
30 games. Yeah.
It's still
Final
not a lot.
fact: of the 23 Prem referees, ranging from 1 up to 30 appearances, how many referees gave out no red cards last season?
The vast majority, 2/3 of them.
No, it was only 7. It was,
okay.
Most refs gave out
Had
1, 2, or 3 red cards during the course of the season. Anyway, I thought that was interesting to get some fun facts about elite referees from last season.
Do those stats mean that we need to change the name of this podcast? Because clearly reds don't occur as often in football as we think they do.
Mostly yellow, sometimes red.
Yeah, why not?
Podcast.
Unless you're Michael Oliver.
I'm not changing the name of our podcast now. We're stuck with it. But,
fair enough.
So there we go. That's it for this week.
Lovely stuff.
Have a lovely game later on today.
I will, thank you. Again, live streamed for you. What, kickoffs at 6? So it'll be at like 9 a.m. tomorrow morning.
Oh,
yeah.
And did you put the links anywhere on the socials as to where we can watch these streams?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I put it on the Instagram story a little while back.
Okay, can we do it again, maybe, if you remember, for your game?
Yeah, you can just Google FQPL1 on YouTube and it'll come through. I suppose I said Google it, but on YouTube, FQPL1. So if you want to watch my game from last week, it was Western Pride. No, it wasn't. It was Wynnum Wolves versus Southside Eagles. Yes.
Perfect.
Yeah, FQPL1, Football Queensland Premier League 1. Oh, and also I bumped into Joey, who's our contact at Process Sports, at training on Tuesday and Thursday. He was there both days. He's lovely. He's an A-League official, actually, linesman, and he did the VAR course. So I look forward to chatting to him about that at some point. But yeah, he's our contact at Process Sports, and he said that people have been using the code, which is great. So don't forget, you can get your 10% off at processports.com for any refereeing equipment if you're in Australia.
And for those of you in the UK, it is therefereestore.co.uk. And you're remembering to put in the discount code red or yellow 10, or one word, for your 10% discount for all your refereeing accessories.
And it's there we go. It's the same code at both stores.
Perfect. So thanks again to those for their support,
as always.
And yeah, hopefully Adam will record another episode next week and get closer to finishing off the laws before the UK season begins again.
We're getting there, aren't we? How exciting.
We are.
You have an awesome week, my friend.
You too. Nice seeing you.
Likewise.
Bye.
Ciao, ciao.
Thank you for making it to the end of another episode of Red or Yellow. You're clearly a very fit listener. May I gently remind you to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Tell all your friends. And don't forget to please share it with any colleagues or refereeing groups that you may have. Good luck on the fields out there this week. And if you have any questions, please send them in to us. Voice notes can be sent to redorYellowpod@gmail.com, or you can contact us on social media. It's @redorYellowpod. Have the most wonderful day. Thank you so much for listening. Ciao, ciao.